So there's no spoilers for Spider-Man Brand New Day in this video, don't worry. I just thought it would be fun to cover the story where Ultimate Spider-Man fights the Hulk for the very first time in Marvel Comics. So this is Ultimate Marvel Team Up, issues 2 and 3, and Spider-Man ends up realizing the Incredible Hulk is in the city of New York, and he tracks him down just by following all the screaming and the loud roars and the noises, which is kind of what you would expect when you're facing off against the Hulk. It is also important to specify here, Spider-Man was also kind of tipped off in the sense that the Daily Bugle, and especially Ben Urich, was notified that there's a green monster heading towards New York and somebody needs to respond and do something. So of course, Spider-Man ends up being the one to respond here, but he's never fought the Hulk before, and this guy dominates him like that. I mean, it's not even close, but when you're facing off against a force like this, you don't really know what to do. But it's also important to know this is at a time where Peter Parker was very inexperienced, and so that's why when the Hulk shows up here, his first thought, well, thank God I have a spider sense to warn me of personal danger, because this is one that I could not have figured out by myself. I love the sarcasm remains even in the midst of all of this. What's so funny is that during this fight, the people in New York are just kind of like standing around and watching and taking pictures. They don't understand the significance of the threat. The whole time, Hulk's just like roaming around saying Hulk smash. And once Peter realizes that the Hulk is gonna start going after innocent people, he starts throwing everything he can at this guy. This is after the Hulk just like claps and sends Peter crashing into a car. So quite literally, Peter picks up a taxi cab and throws it at the Hulk, which of course doesn't do anything. But Peter, being young and naive and a little arrogant and carried away with himself, thinks it does, right? He's like, yeah, man, that's right. You heard me, Mr. Big Green Thing guy, whatever you are. Now step off. And so again, people are just kind of sitting around. And Peter actually calls out. He's like, are there any cops around here? Has anybody called the cops? Like, what's going on? And so of course there's a rumble under the car, and the Hulk just emerges from this thing, because it's like John Lithgow said to that guy in the movie Ricochet, you didn't beat him, you just pissed him off, and now you're because now the Hulk's gonna be out for blood, son. And that's exactly what happens, right? He literally comes tearing after Peter Parker. And that's kind of the funny thing is his response, right? Like, come on, man. Like, I threw a whole car at you. And the Hulk doesn't really say anything. He just kind of grumbles a little bit. And Peter's like, hey, listen, man, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. And the Hulk's just like smash, right? And just at this point sees Peter Parker as more of a fly than anything else, right? And of course, Peter ends up taking off. But here's the funny thing is that again, while it may look like Peter doesn't really understand what's happening in the here and now, initially he didn't. Now he's starting to figure it out. But one of the mainstays of Peter is cracking jokes. And it's because of Dan Slott's Renew Your Vows that we know that he does that in order to throw his enemies off kilter. And with the Incredible Hulk, the guy's always on a knife's edge anyway. And so that's why Spider-Man gives the impression he doesn't take him seriously. Spider-Man, gassy, but you wouldn't see me going around bragging about it, right? But that's where he says, I wonder if anyone would notice if I actually wet my pants, because if someone doesn't come along and help me soon, I think I'm gonna. And so that's where he webs up the Incredible Hulk, right? Like, did you order the web Caesar salad, right? Just joking with him the whole time, shoots webbing in his face. And the whole time he's asking, where are the cops, right? The firemen, astronauts, Will Smith and his crazy wife, anybody, right? Someone do something. And so he like grabs a mailbox and cracks the Hulk over the head with it. And is like, now would be the appropriate time for you to lie down and sleep, by the way. And that's where like a dude comes running up out of nowhere. And this is actually a really cool moment. This guy comes running up, starts just hurling obscenities at the Hulk for trashing his bike and just like throwing stuff at him, rocks and whatever he can get his hands on. And Spider-Man tells him, look, man, like, it's nice of you to help, but you really should get out of Dodge. I'm barely holding my own here, right? You don't really have much of a chance in this particular instance. But as you guys know, New Yorkers stand together. There's a shared camaraderie there. Like if a guy were to pass out in a subway train in the door, New Yorkers would drag him inside the subway car because there's no way they're all gonna be late for work. I heard a story about that once. But in all seriousness, right? Like Spider-Man, someone having the backing of the citizens of New York, a lot of these guys, they on some level end up rallying around him. And again, that's where Peter's now doing double duty. And that's the difficulty here. When you have citizens that jump into the fray on any kind of a level, people, or at the very least, refuse to leave. Spider-Man has to fight against the Hulk and protect them at the exact same time, to the point that the Hulk like picks up a rock and just tosses it back at the guy and cracks him in the head with it. And so Spider-Man's like, look man, we need to get you out of here. The problem is that this momentary distraction is enough, because in that moment, the Hulk sees Spider-Man, grabs him by the head, lifts him into the air, and is just like, Hulk smash. And in this moment, he's about to kill him. And at the time this story came out, it was nuts, because people were just like, are they really going to kill Ultimate Spider-Man this early on? No way. There's no way that's going to happen. Because the story came out in what, like 2001? So like a year or so after the introduction of Ultimate Spider-Man. And so that's where Peter, again, being young and brash, is just kind of making jokes of the whole thing, right? Like, you're pissing me off. Like he has any choice in this conflict. But that's where he starts thinking, right? Like, you're a teenage superhero wannabe. You want to play in the big leagues with everybody, and all you can think of is hitting your own head. So come on, do something. But that's where the citizens start to come in and offer aid, right? Someone should do something. Somebody asks, like, what exactly are we supposed to do? And the whole time, Peter's head is literally getting crushed by the Incredible Hulk, right? He's about to kill this guy. And he says, after this thing's done smashing you, think of all the people that he's going to hurt, the people around here. This is a mindless beast on a rampage through the city. Folks are going to die. I cannot let that happen. And that's when he thinks of Aunt May. Now, in a lot of ways, it kind of seems like one of these things where it's like, really? Like, that's always the thing. In the Ultimate Universe, it was, right? Because again, we're like a year into the story. This is the kind of thing that made Ultimate Spider-Man so fun and fantastic to read in the original Ultimate Universe run, because you have a 15, 16-year-old kid who's given powers, who reacts pretty much the same way you or I would. That yes, there's a price to be paid for these kinds of things, but at the same time, we get carried away with ourselves, right? We get caught up in the moment. We would get excited. We would kind of get cocky and arrogant, believing that with these new abilities, we can somehow take on the world. But it's like Nick Fury said to Iron Man, right? You've stepped into a much bigger world. You just don't know it yet. The threats hit harder. The threats are a lot deadlier. It's something you have to prep for. And this is a huge lesson for Spider-Man to learn. But the idea of him thinking about Aunt May is a hallmark, because one of the cornerstones of Peter in the Ultimate Universe, and almost any other universe, because there are universes where he's just a straight up villain, Peter always thinks about other people before he thinks about himself. And Aunt May is kind of the thing that always brings him back. Her, or Mary Jane Watson, or Gwen Stacy, or Betty Brant, right, depending on what era of Spider-Man comics you're talking about. But the point is, in thinking about all of this, the citizens end up like pushing over a pole, which crashes onto the Hulk. Of course, not enough to kill him, but it is a momentary distraction. He loosens his grip just enough for Spider-Man to get out. And even Peter says, I'm lucky, right, that the citizens were here, because if they'd all left, I would have died here, right? He's like, head's throbbing. I might have a concussion. I'm feeling kind of dizzy, shaky, but I am lucky. But the fact is, the citizens are still here. And as you guys know with the Hulk, when someone does something to piss him off, they become his first and only concern. He will destroy the one thing that angers him in that moment. And that's why he turns to the citizens. Spider-Man yanks his attention back, and the fight between the two of them are on. And that's when Peter realizes this is just too fascinating for the citizens of New York. They're too curious. They're not going to go anywhere. They're going to keep staying here. They're going to keep recording it or taking pictures or whatever it is that they feel like they can do to get some footage about the zaniness of what's happening. So that's why he says, I have to get this giant green thing away from people. What kind of world am I living in that getting a green giant monster to do anything is now part of my day? What is this thing? And so that's why he addresses the citizens yet again. Hey, all of you people just standing around watching the show, you wouldn't take it personally if I told you to get out of here and run for cover, would you? And he says, I swear, I went 15 whole years without even considering what I would do if I met a giant green monster. And now all of a sudden, it's a growing concern. Where can I take him? In New York City? A place with no people? Sure, no biggie. That's not a problem. Arguably the most populated city in the world. Where am I gonna bring this guy? And that's where he says, hey, little sprout, over here, right? Calling over to the Hulk, calling him small in any way is hilarious. And he's like, that's right, I'm talking to you, man. Big green tub of monosyllabic whatever. And that's where the Hulk just kind of snorts at him. And Peter's just like, man, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. And so what ends up happening is he grabs the Hulk, makes a distraction, and takes off. right? And he's like, yeah, another great idea. So now what do I do, right? I've got this guy's attention. Do I take him to Central Park? No way. Howard Stern jogs there, the pier. And that's where he says the waterfront, right? Maybe he'll fall in, right? Maybe he doesn't have the ability to swim. Anything is better than fighting in this city full of people. And so at that point, he starts taunting the Hulk, or at least thinks he is, because when he looks back, the Hulk's gone, right? Like the Hulk's nowhere to be seen. And he's like, what in the hell, right? But then in that moment, his spider sense goes off. He looks up and sees the Hulk is coming down like he possesses the wrath of God, right? And like literally Spider-Man jumps out of the way just in time for the Hulk to smash into the ground. And he says, hey, I'm not paying for that either, Kermit, right? And he's like, are you sure that you don't want to just grab a falafel and just sit and talk about whatever's got you so green, right? And the kind of funny thing here is he says, I know that was a really corny joke, but I'm kind of scared out of my mind, you know? So my head still hurts from all the mushing and the squishing and all that kind of stuff. But again, pisses the Hulk off through and through. So at that point, Peter's just like, I mean, what happened to you, right? A tanning bed mishap? But in creating all of this irritation, the Hulk just says, Hulk smash. And then like this woman just stumbles into the battlefield, right? Good Lord, what happened now, right? This city is turning into such a catastrophe. And that's where Peter realizes Hulk's gonna go after her, right? And that's where Peter's like, come on, lady. Like you literally picked the worst moment to stumble in to all of this. So he just like swoops in, grabs this lady, swings away the whole time she's panicking. And he's like, you're welcome for the help, lady. I got to go back and get myself killed. And so at that point, he's back on to getting the attention of the Incredible Hulk. And then at that moment, you switch over to the waterfront. And he says that, right? Like, I'm glad I got him to follow me to the waterfront. So what now, right? Less people, but there's still people here. More people than I thought would be here. But it's better than Midtown. So what is that thing? Right? It's an actual freaking monster. I'm looking at it, but I can't believe it. Of course, I'm looking at it stuck to a wall 20 feet in the air. So am I really the one to talk about how crazy things are these days? But he says, didn't Ben Urich say that he got a call from some army dude about this? Well, where are they? Right? If the military contacted Ben Urich about the Hulk coming to the city, then where's the military? And that's where he looks at him and is like, okay, so he looks tired and it looks like he might be getting ready for a nap. And so obviously he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. And that's where Peter realizes the Hulk's lack of intelligence is the thing he can use to overcome him. And for a moment, he thinks about taking off and he muses that, right? Like, should I just leave and not press my luck and hope the authorities come? Now, this is not Spider-Man being one of these kind of versions of himself where he's just like, yeah, we'll just leave the people to their fate. If they're smart, they'll run away. No. He's always looking out for folks. And that's when he says, no, he's lumbering towards people again. And that's where he says, I know exactly what to do, right? This guy's not that bright. And what is he? At the end of the day, he's effectively a predator. He's just this great big huge lumbering beast. He's not overly intelligent. And what do you do when it comes to dealing with predators? Well, if they're bears, you run away. But if you're Spider-Man, then you create a distraction for them. You lure them somewhere away from people. And that's where he starts throwing fish out in front of the Hulk. And the Hulk, right, looking down at it is just like, fantastic, right? And literally just starts like following this quote unquote trail of breadcrumbs, essentially, right? Like he's on some ET type shit and just like starts eating these fish as they're being tossed out to him. And again, that's when he like walks into the warehouse and there's fish everywhere. So as far as he's concerned, he's walked into a buffet. But the funny thing here is that Spider-Man says, okay, so it worked. That should hold him for like 4 seconds. And with this like box of fish sitting out there, the Hulk just starts grubbing down. And Spider-Man just kind of starts analyzing the whole situation, right? Even if I move, I might get him all crazy all over again. And we don't want any more of that. He's kind of fascinating, right? It's like being at the zoo. So many questions, right? How did this thing get this way? What does he want? Where does he buy those pants? How do they not rip off of him? Right? Does he say anything except Hulk smash? But what's also interesting is that in the midst of this, as the Hulk eats, he starts to calm down. And as he calms down, as you guys know, he starts to revert back into Bruce Banner. And so Spider-Man gets a moment of reprieve because he says, at least I'm pretty sure I'm able to take him out now. But as we know with Peter, when it comes to something like this, he follows a scientific method, right? Form a hypothesis, test the hypothesis, analyze the conclusion. Does the conclusion confirm the hypothesis? And if it doesn't, then it means my hypothesis hypothesis was wrong. At this point in time, in this battle with the Hulk, his whole hypothesis, this is a giant green rage monster that's lumbering, is going to destroy any and everything he sees. He tested the hypothesis by literally watching how the Hulk reacted to anybody intervening or stepping in any way, and how the Hulk beat the hell out of him. And that's where the conclusion came: the Hulk is a monster, right? It seemed to confirm his hypothesis. Now we've got a variable. The Hulk eats food, the Hulk calms down, the Hulk becomes a guy. So now he gets to ask questions. And so he shows up and he's like, what's going on here? And Banner's just like, dude, you scared the hell out of me, right? And Spider-Man's just like, I scared you. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what's your deal, man? And so that's where Banner's just like, fish. Okay, where am I this time, right? What's that smell? Please tell me I didn't kill anybody this time. Because in the Ultimate Universe, and what you guys are picking up on here, the idea of Banner remembering what Hulk doesn't exist here, right? Banner, quote unquote, blacks out, essentially. And so that's why he asks, where am I? And Spider-Man just says, New York City. And Banner's like, oh God, right? And Peter's like, yeah, man, you know, like the New York City where a lot of people were almost killed by this huge green monster wearing very similar pants to yours, right? You need to start spilling the beans on what's going on, man, because I'm about a hair's breadth away from just beating you unconscious, right? And so Banner just says, this is a nightmare that never ends. And so Peter asks, like, what are you talking about, right? What's going on with you? And that's where Banner tries to explain, like, you have to listen. There's not much time. It's all connected, right? That's it. That's the secret. And Peter's like, what are you talking about? And Banner says, all of it, right? All of this, it's all connected. You, me, anybody out there with powers, the whole 9 yards. And that's true. It all essentially goes back to Nick Fury, not Steve Rogers, Captain America, because he was not the original super soldier. Nick Fury, like Samuel L. Jackson Nick Fury in the original Ultimate Universe. And that's where Banner tells Peter, they don't want you to figure it out. They don't want you to know how your parents, how your father, Richard Parker, and everything all ties into it all. And so Peter asks, who the hell are you? And at that moment, a giant light shines. And you got Ross standing there who says, time to put on your collar, Dr. Banner. And Peter starts to realize there's something much bigger going on here. Banner was telling the truth, right? And Banner doesn't want to have anything to do with it. But of course, Ross tells him, you know how this goes, Banner. Either you can put the collar on or we can put it on you. But one way or another, this collar is coming on. Right, that's just the way that it is. You are going back under control. And Peter kind of tries to neutralize everything. And he asks, like, what is this? Who are you people? What are you going to do to him? Why doesn't everybody just calm down for a second? And Ross just tells him, right, stand aside, right? We will deal with you in a second. And in this heightened state of duress, this moment of panic, when shit's just popping off, what does Banner do? Turns back into the Hulk, which is kind of like the worst case scenario for all parties involved. Because at that point, Ross says, you're interfering with matters of national security, kid. You do not want to hitch your horse to this carriage. And the whole time, Hulk just says, leave me alone. And in that moment, when Banner morphs back into the Hulk, what does Thunderbolt Ross say? Fire. And the whole building gets fired upon by his forces, right? By his helicopters. And it says, confirm target hit, red fire 1, confirm hit. Over. And that's where Hulk just explodes out of what's left of the warehouse and takes off again. And it's like, nope, the target's still on the move. He is not dead. And it says the target's heading toward Jersey. Pursue, right? The order is to chase him down. And of course, that's where Thunderbolt Ross takes off. And Spider-Man just sitting on a piece of wood out there in the bay is just kind of like, yeah, you're welcome. And so that's where the story ends, because this is just a little bit of a team up, right? But it actually continues on with the story of the Incredible Hulk within the comics. And the lore goes deep, right? The lore behind everything in the original Ultimate Universe, how basically everybody got their powers, was pretty fascinating, because it essentially all goes back to replicating the original super soldier serum that was used to create Nick Fury and then eventually Captain America, the activation of the discovered X gene within Wolverine, which was synthesized to create mutants in Marvel Comics. It's pretty fascinating, or at least in the Ultimate Universe. It's fascinating stuff. The original Ultimate Universe was dope until it wasn't. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this to an end. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.